Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Daily Recap. Once again, I'm Evan Lazarus. I'm the CEO of T3 Live, and I hope everybody's having a nice Friday. And this morning, I did what I thought was a pretty deep morning call in terms of the content. It was something that it's not typical for what we usually do here or what you're accustomed to seeing if if you frequent our website or you happen to consume, a lot of our content. Traditionally, the morning call has a very distinguished look and feel to it that follows, form every day. Well, this morning I kind of broke away from that form, and I wanted to provide a little bit of a different perspective, not in terms of the markets or trading, but in terms of just, something to think about. And sometimes it's healthy to take a step away and talk about something other than what the market's doing or what, the handful of stocks are doing on any given day. And I got a really, really nice response throughout the course of the day from the morning call. So rather than talk about the market on this Friday afternoon when there's really very little change today, there was not a whole lot of action on this options expiration day, a little bit of a push into the close, but again, a very, very muted session all around. So rather than recap something that there's just not all that much to talk about that we haven't already said this morning or yesterday or even a week ago, I think that it would be better just to rerun the morning call as a little bit of a value added for those that didn't catch it this morning over the course of the weekend. If you have some time, again, take some time to commit and think about some of the things that I talked about this morning. Before we jump into just to rerun today's morning call, I do want to highlight, if you jump over to the website, you'll see on the home page what I learned while losing money. And this is a webinar that I'm going to be putting on this coming Tuesday, May 20th at 4:30 Eastern Time. And it's going to be a story about, from bad to average and from average to, well, better than average. And it's sort of an evolution of my trading existence and how I learned to do what I did and the pitfalls and how I overcame them. So for those that are, interested in hearing an interesting story and my perspective and some tips and techniques on, some self-improvement, some self-awareness, as well as some, especially for those that are having trouble with stock selection, make sure you tune in. So click on this banner here to register Tuesday at 4:30. That being said, have a great weekend, and I hope you enjoy again this morning's morning call. As an educator, I will tell you that I'm a big believer in trading as an 80-20 and not the Red Dog 80-20, but really more 80% of trading is really what goes on in between your ears up here, and not so much about the specific market or any particular stock. Yes, that is important as well, and I call that the other 20%. So it's 20%, tools, tactics, and techniques, and 80% what goes on in between your ears. So to that point, I wanted to kind of continue the conversation I started yesterday in the recap. And yesterday afternoon, we did a webinar with Mike Lee and Steve LeVay that I hosted about how they approach the first 2 hours of every trading day. Now those two are pattern day traders that tend to thrive in that first 2 hours of the day. They have some really interesting strategies that they use in terms of both finding stocks and trading stocks and how they go about with a very consistent tactical approach every single day. And the reasons that they love doing what they do, which is, I think, the most important part. But in the end of the webinar, we did a Q&A, and the Q&A was rather extensive in that the watchers or you, I'm sure some of you are watching this now, the questions were just flying in, one after the next, after the next, after the next, to the point where I had trouble even following the questions. And last night I spent some time and I went through a lot of those questions. And there were some recurring themes in a lot of those questions from you, the subscribers or the watchers that are, they're out there. You're trying to day trade. You're trying to swing trade. You're trying to, get yourself going or make more money or learn to make a little bit of money or wherever you're at in your evolutionary cycle as a trader. But there were some common themes in those questions in that there was a lot of how did you overcome this obstacle, or how did you get to trading for 14 years, or tell me where I should start. Is day trading or short-term trading a good place to start? And I think the questions were, questions that I get all the time as an educator, whether we're teaching or my colleagues are teaching. But I wanted to take 2 minutes to show you something that I pulled out of my educational arsenal, and it's really simple. But there's, as you all know from prior morning calls or videos that I've done, I really find beauty in simplicity. I think it's such a wonderful thing to have somebody ask you a simple question and have it trigger a reaction where you think, and it makes you think harder than you realized. So I wanted to pull this out because it does address a lot of the common themes that we get in terms of calls and questions and inquiries into our education and what we do and how we do it. That I think if you take 5 minutes of your day just to think about, if you want to take another 5 minutes and actually commit your answers to paper, that's obviously recommended, but completely upon you. But it's a good place to start in terms of some self-analysis and some basically a way to ask yourself some questions about where you're going as a trader, how you're doing, what you could be doing better and more. So let's jump into it here, and I have it outlined, and I basically call it 4 simple questions because that's really all it is. And the first question is, what is it you're trying to accomplish this year? Again, for some of you that may be defined in terms of money. For some of you that may be defined in terms of education. By the end of this year, I'd like to know A, B, and C, or I'd like to be more skilled at this type of trading or this strategy. I think a good goal for a lot of the more novice traders or even those that are 1 to 3 years in that are still exploring and learning, ask yourself the question, are you the master of one thing? Are you great at one thing? And I know that as I've taught a lot of people over the years, everybody comes in and they say to me, hey, hey Laz, I've tried to day trade and I've tried to swing trade and I've done some investing, and you jump around from thing to thing to thing. One day you're trading options, the next day you're day trading stock, the next day you're trading Forex, and so on and so forth. And you never really take the time to build a skill set to be great at one thing. Mike and Steve, as an example, in their Trade the Morning mentoring and strategy course, they really focus on one thing. And they're great at one thing. Now, they may break it out into, they have a couple strategies, but all those strategies are built around doing one thing and doing it really well. So they've mastered their identity, and I think that that's a really, really important thing for you to think about. Have you done that? So in that first question, what is it you're trying to accomplish this year? Ask yourself in that framework. 2, what do you think it would take to double your business this year? And you can take out the word business and insert trading this year. And that's kind of a tough question to answer because some of you may not be in a position to think like that. Maybe some of you are not even at the point where you can consider growth because you don't really have a foundation from which to build. So for those of you that are operating from behind the 8 ball, where you've maybe tried to trade, you haven't had success with it, so to think about how to double your trading or enhance your business so that you're growing, may seem like a very distant path, but in reality, it can be, you can expedite that learning curve fairly substantially if you commit to just building a foundation. Let's keep it going here. Number 3, what frustrates you the most about your trading this year? And I love this question because for some of you, I'm sure it's gonna, you're gonna take a pen to paper and you're gonna maybe list 20 things. Well, if you actually take the time to think about what frustrates you, whether it's the market going up or the market going down, or your own personal inefficiencies, your stubbornness, your temper, the fact that you don't follow rules and you don't stick to stop losses and you break the rules that we constantly try and preach and enforce, be cognizant of them. On May 20th, I'm going to do a webinar. It's called What I Learned While I Lost Money, or While Losing Money. And it's basically the story of how I became a bad trader to a decent trader. Not a bad trader to a great trader or even an unbelievable trader, because I would never put myself out there and call myself that when I was trading. I'm not currently trading. But when I was early in my career, there was a process to go from bad to, okay, I think I got it, to, all right, I'm moving forward, to, I really feel like I have some mastery of a skill set. And the reason I was able to do that is because I was very cognizant of the things that bothered me, or the things that I was bad at, or where I found frustration, and those led to, you know, making myself self-aware, so that I wasn't going to change who I was, but I was going to try and build my trading so that I structured it to what suited me best. And I think that's really something, again, this is all just food for thought. I'm not asking anybody to do anything other than just think. And myself as a former trader and as a longtime educator, and, you know, someone who's in the business of helping other people achieve goals, whether it's financial or personal, you know, my job is to do a lot of things. And the first thing I really foremost want to do is I want to be able to get you to think. Because this is a business, whether you're a day trader, a swing trader, you're trading Forex, you're trading futures, you're trading options, whatever it is you're doing, you're an investor, you're actively managing money, however you would define yourself in this arena, you know, you got to ask yourself those questions. What am I good at? What frustrates me? You know, where do I excel? Where do I find myself that I really shrivel up and fall apart? And that was a very big step for me personally, you know, in becoming terrible and losing money to becoming break even, which to me was a monumental milestone. And lastly, what have you already done to try and improve your trading? It's really 5 questions, but what has worked and what hasn't? So, have you attempted to fix your problems? Have you acknowledged what your problems even are? If you haven't done that, you're never going to make the attempt to fix it. If you don't know what's broken, how can you fix it? If you're not getting the results that you want in the market, you're a day trader, again, you're a swing trader, you're a position trader, you don't even know what you are. You're just somebody that's trying to make money, and you're long and you don't know why, and you're just, you know, you're chasing whatever it is, however it is whatever category you may put yourself into. If you're honest with yourself, you know, ask yourself those questions. This is a performance-based business. Trading is a meritocracy. You're going to be judged on how well you do, not on how much you know. I know traders that know a lot. They know tons. They can tell me, they can recite the Encyclopedia of Technical Analysis. They can tell me every pattern in the book. They can tell me everything about every indicator and oscillator, but they can't make money. And if you're one of those and you think you know a ton, but it's not reflected on the other side, there's a disconnect. There's something that's broken that's preventing you from getting here to here. And if you're not thinking about what that disconnect is, you're not really doing yourself a service. And I'm not doing you a service as an educator, nor are my colleagues, if they're not getting you to think about how you can improve yourself. And again, being self-aware. So this is just something I wanted to talk about, and it came to my mind last night as I was on my way home, because the questions, like I said, there were just so many questions that centered around these kinds of issues. So I thought it would be, you know, behoove me that I had the mic again this morning to kind of follow up on my recap from last night and segue it, because, you know, to be honest, I'm gonna get into the market stuff right now, but, you know, I want to get you to think. And you know, the last thing about it those questions is, and again, I'll bring them up. If we can just flash back to it one more time. If you are so inclined, send me your answers. Answer those questions as they pertain to you. Be honest, be transparent. Tell me what it is, you know, or my team that's preventing you. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me how, you know, you are getting ahead and you're doing great. I want to know. You're not getting ahead. You're just in a tough spot. You're confused. You're lost. I want to know that too. Send me some feedback. Feedback at T3 Live. You, my watchers, you know, you're the most important thing that we have as educators, and I want to know what it is you're thinking and what it is you're doing. Or you can always give us a call, 888-998-3548.